Enoch wiped the grease from his hands onto his already stained coveralls, surveying the dimly lit hangar with tired eyes. The frontier station orbited a dying star at the edge of known space, and his small repair shop was the last stop before the void. Most nights, he worked alone, fixing derelict ships for travelers desperate enough to venture this far from civilization. Tonight was different. He'd heard the crash around midnight, a sound like thunder splitting steel. When he investigated, he found a pod embedded in the hangar floor, its hull still smoking from atmospheric entry. The hatch was already open, and inside, nothing. Just scorch marks and what looked like scales scattered across the interior. Enoch had circled back to his workbench, assuming whatever had been inside had already fled into the station's maze of corridors. But then he saw her. Curled beneath the belly of a half-repaired freighter, a woman slept. Or rather, something that resembled a woman. Her skin shimmered with iridescent scales that shifted from deep crimson to gold in the flickering hangar lights. Two elegant horns curved back from her forehead, and a long, muscular tail was wrapped protectively around her body. Massive wings, folded tight against her back, twitched occasionally as she dreamed to dragon. An actual dragon woman. Enoch had heard stories, of course. The Dracari were legendary, an ancient species that had mastered biotechnology to the point of transforming themselves into living weapons. They were warriors, nobility, beings of immense power. What in the hell was one doing in his hangar? He approached carefully, his boots silent on the metal floor. Up close, he could see the exhaustion etched into her features, the way her breathing came shallow and pained. Burns marked her arms and shoulders, and one wing hung at an odd angle. She was hurt. Badly. Before Enoch could decide what to do, her eyes snapped open, brilliant amber orbs with slit pupils that fixed on him with predatory intensity. In one fluid motion, she lunged, her hand closing around his throat as she pinned him against the freighter's landing gear. "Where am I?" she demanded, her voice a low growl. "What station is this?" "A frontier station," Enoch gasped, not struggling. He'd learned long ago that panic only made things worse. "Edge of the outer rim. You crashed here." Her grip loosened slightly as she processed this information. Her eyes narrowed. "Impossible. I was light years from the rim." The warp gate. She stopped, pain flashing across her face. Her injured wing trembled, and she released him, stumbling backward. Enoch caught her before she collapsed. Despite her obvious strength, she weighed less than he expected, her frame designed for flight rather than bulk. "Easy," he murmured. "You're hurt. Let me help." She tried to push him away, but her strength was fading. "I need. No human can. I must. You'll die if you don't rest," Enoch said firmly, guiding her toward his living quarters at the back of the hangar. "Whatever you're running from can wait until you're not bleeding out." The dragon woman, Adeline, she finally told him her name was, proved to be a stubborn patient. Over the next 3 days, Enoch worked to repair both her and the damaged ships in his hangar. She refused to explain why she'd been fleeing, only that hunters from her own kind were pursuing her for breaking the old laws. "My people believe humans are beneath us," she admitted one evening, watching him work on a plasma coil with surprising dexterity. "Primitives who got lucky with technology. They would rather die than accept help from your kind." "But not you?" Enoch asked, not looking up from his work. Adeline was quiet for a long moment. "I have seen what humans can do when given a chance. Your species doesn't have our strength, our longevity, our natural weapons. Yet you've spread across the galaxy through sheer will and ingenuity. You adapt. You survive. You create." She gestured at the hangar around them. "You build sanctuaries in the void itself." Enoch finally met her gaze. "So what did you do that was so terrible?" Her expression hardened. "I refused to participate in a culling. My people wanted to eradicate a human colony that had settled in what we consider sacred space. I argued that the galaxy is vast enough for both our species. I suggested cooperation. Alliance." She laughed bitterly. "For that, I was declared traitor and outcast. The hunters will not stop until I'm dead." The hunters arrived on the 4th day. Enoch was beneath a shuttle when the hangar doors exploded inward. 3 Dracari warriors stormed in, each one larger and more heavily armored than Adeline. Their scales were darker, their horns wickedly sharp, and they carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Adeline of House Pyrith, the lead hunter announced, his voice echoing through the hangar. "You have been sentenced to death. Surrender, and we will make it quick." Adeline stepped forward, placing herself between Enoch and the hunters. Despite her injuries, she stood tall, defiant. "I will not run anymore. But the human is innocent. Let him leave." The lead hunter's eyes shifted to Enoch, dismissing him with a sneer. "A pet mechanic? Pathetic." He raised his weapon. "Die with dignity, traitor." Enoch didn't think. He dove for the control panel near his workbench and slammed his fist down on the emergency lockdown. Instantly, blast shields dropped from the ceiling, separating the hunters. The magnetic fields in the floor activated, designed to hold ships in place during repairs, but equally effective at disrupting the hunters' flight. "Now," Enoch shouted. Adeline moved like lightning. Despite her injuries, she was still Dracary, faster and stronger than any human. She took down the first hunter with a blast of superheated plasma from a torch Enoch had modified. The second lost his footing when Enoch reversed the gravity plating beneath him, sending him crashing into the ceiling. The lead hunter, however, was better prepared. He shattered the blast shield with a roar, lunging at Adeline with claws extended. She met him head-on, and the two dragons collided in a fury of scales and fire. Enoch knew he couldn't match them in combat, but he didn't need to. This was his hangar, his territory. He knew every system, every weakness, every trick. While they fought, he rerouted power from the life support systems, flooding the hangar with coolant vapor that obscured vision and grounded the dragon's natural heat signatures that in the chaos. Adeline managed to disable the lead hunter, pinning him against a bulkhead with a piece of rebar through his shoulder. "Leave," she commanded. "Tell the council that I am no longer alone. Tell them humanity has more to offer than they know." The hunters retreated, dragging their wounded with them. As the hangar fell silent except for the hiss of escaping coolant, Adeline turned to Enoch. Blood dripped from a gash across her cheek, but she was smiling. "You fought for me," she said, wonder in her voice. "A human stood against Dracary warriors for my sake." Enoch shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "You were in my hangar. I protect what's mine." Adeline's smile widened, something warm and fierce burning in her amber eyes. She closed the distance between them, her tail wrapping gently around his wrist. "Yours?" she repeated, a purr entering her voice. "How human of you to claim a dragon." "I didn't mean." She silenced him by pressing a scaled finger to his lips. "In my culture, when someone saves your life, a debt is formed. A bond. Among my people, such bonds are sacred." Her expression softened. "I have nowhere else to go, Enoch of Frontier Station. My own kind has cast me out. But perhaps," she gestured at the hangar, at the ships and tools, and the life he'd built. "Perhaps there is room for a dragon here? In your sanctuary at the edge of the void." Enoch looked at her, really looked at her. Not as a legendary warrior or an alien creature, but as someone who had chosen to stand for what she believed in, even when it cost her everything. Someone who saw humanity not as inferior, but as partners worthy of respect. "I've got plenty of room," he said finally, a smile tugging at his lips. "Fair warning, though. I'm a terrible cook. The heating system is always breaking down, and you'll probably have to help with repairs." Adeline laughed, the sound like chiming bells. "I am a master of plasma systems and structural engineering. Your repairs will improve dramatically." She leaned closer, her forehead touching his. "And perhaps, together, we can show both our species what is possible when humans and dragons work as one." In the dim light of the hangar, surrounded by the smell of oil and ozone, Enoch realized that he'd found something far more valuable than any repair contract. He'd found purpose, partnership, maybe even something more. The dragon woman who'd crashed into his life had chosen him, just as surely as he'd chosen to stand with her. And in the vast, cold expanse of space, that choice meant everything.